Okay, so for this next tutorial, or I'm going to stop calling them tutorials and just say for the next portion of the kite build, I talked about doing sort of a tour of my studio and my workshop, but I think we'll just get to that as we build because you'll see everything anyway. I'm going to kind of do this. It's not going to be a very polished production. I'm just going to show you stuff and how to build the kite and materials. I think right now we'll just go over some of the materials. I have a bin full of parts. You won't necessarily need to buy a ton of parts. You can buy exactly what you need for this kite, the return. But I build a lot of kites, so I have a lot of options here. But some of the things you'll need, or all the things you need, are one, you'll need a center tee, and when you buy these, you'll need to pay attention to the manufacturer's specs on the diameter. You can see here that there's a smaller diameter that will fit a ferrule that will go between the two lower spreaders, and then there's a wider diameter the spine can go through, and you can switch on this particular one. You can switch these around. That's what I'm going to use because that's what is shown on the photos on the website where the plans are available. Other center tees, there's other options. You know, there's this one by R-Sky, and then I think that's a HQ maybe, or an APA connector, and you can still see there's different diameters, and I like both of those for different reasons, but for this build we'll use that one. You'll also notice that these two have quite a bit of length from where the spine and the lower spreader will go, the R-Sky being the longest, so that'll hold the spreader off the spine, and then this one is the closest of the three, and I like that one since that's what's shown in the plan. And other things you'll need, you'll want to have some standoff holders. I like these particular ones. They'll go on the lower spreader and hold the end of the sail standoff, and so we'll use a couple of those, and those are really stretchy there, so they'll go over a 5PT black diamond lower spreader, no problem. And then we'll need a couple of end knocks. These are HQ ones, and these are also available in other diameters, and I like these because they're a very simple retention system. We'll put a piece of Dacron through the hole in the middle that's retained, and it'll go down around the wingtip loop and then through with a knot in here, and it'll hold itself there. So we got a couple of those. And then, of course, we'll need some standoff on the sail side standoff connectors, and there's always more than one option. I think for this build we'll go ahead and use these Jayco connectors. These ones just use you put a hole in the reinforcements in the sail, and then they just press fit, and then you can use an O-ring on the back of the sail, which kind of just keeps the sail from coming off. The other option I have, I'll have to go searching for them, are the kind that screw in, but they add a little extra length to your standoff, so we'll cut the final length of our standoffs once the connector is attached to it, and I'll show you how to do that. And I'm not seeing that I have any of the, there's some of the screw-in connectors. They come in a bunch of parts. Maybe we'll use these. These are a little easier because they don't require a press fit. You just cut a hole big enough for the screw. And you use these little tiny screws, a couple of the washers that come with it, and then the standoff portion itself. I'll see those as they come up. So I have both of those, and they both fit 3mm. They do make a 2mm size, so we've got to pay attention to that if you keep them in stock. But so that covers the standoff. So this kite only has one standoff. I think I have to reference the plan to know for sure. The plan will end up on this table at some point, but I have to get this table is not wide enough to hold the whole 36-inch plan, so I'll be putting a platform down when we get to that. Then you need This plan calls for an FSD knock at the end. They come in different sizes. And they, like this one there. And again, they have different diameters. And this one calls for a brass weight to go into that and this to go into the end of the spine. Something I've done in the past is I've used APA connectors, or stand-up sail connectors, on my spine. You can use these as stand-up connectors also. I think that's probably what's more common. But so I've used those in my spine with a tail weight in the end, or stuck in the end and then it slides in. So there's a number of options, but this particular plan calls for one of those FSD. So we'll do our best to stick with the plan here. So put these back, and we'll not need these APA style standoff connectors unless you're not going to use those Excel ones. I think those are Excel, or Jayco, pardon me. These are Jayco. And then you'll need a couple different connectors to connect spreaders to the leading edges. And again, these also come, these are APA. I like these the best. I have some HQ ones that are too small a diameter and they're not very stretchy, so they're hard to put on. I always buy these in a size Kites and Fun Things, a place where you can get these among other stores. They are also Sky Shark, again, Skyburner kites. They have a little guide that recommends what size to buy for which diameter of tubes for Sky Shark wrapped and tapered wrapped spars. I use the smaller ones of their recommendation. I always use for the tapered ones, and I find that they fit nice and tight on the leading edge, the P200s that we're going to use. So we'll use a couple of those for the lower spreader on the leading edge, and then they call for some tiny APA connectors. There's multiple sizes of these as well. I don't recall the size. I think it's a APA CA size, but you would want to reference whatever store you bought them from to make sure those were the right size. I know for sure these are TAPA connectors, the tiny APAs, and these are the size W. And these are the only size in that range that will fit over a P200 leading spar. And it's a little bit of a trick, but we'll go over that when we get there. A little bit of heat and a drop of silicone lubricant, and these will slide right down on there. So we'll get to that. All right, so we got those. Getting a bunch of connectors there. The only place that I use these vinyl end caps anymore is at the nose end of the spine. We'll have one of those, and that way it just doesn't cut through the materials. And then we'll have Velcro, and we'll have this FSD end cap over the other end of the spine. And then, let's see, what else do we need? Some shrink wrap tubing. I like the kind that has adhesive in it. And you can use C-clips, or you can use these same vinyl end caps. You can cut the ends off of them and use those as stopper on the leading edge, and all this will make sense when we do it. But I like to use shrink wrap as a means to keep all my connectors in line, and as the divider, where the retaining strap goes, or where the bridle attaches to the leading edge. On this particular kite, it's not right at the APA connector, it's down the leading edge a little bit. Again, everything will make sense as we build it. And if this proves to be too small, I may cut some of these, and made you that just as an exercise to show you how. So that's everything we need for the leading edges. And then weights, there are different things we can use for weights. I think we may end up using a brass door hinge pin. We'll sand that down to be the right diameter, or something along those lines for the tail weight. And then the frame that we're going to do is going to be all Sky Shark, with the exception of the 5mm protruded upper spreader. But we'll use Black Diamond 5 PT lower spreaders. Those guys right there. These are the ones that have been smoothed and finished. You can get them just wrapped, and they're a little bit cheaper when they're just wrapped, but they're abrasive and they can fray your bridle if you're wrapped up with a kite. So we got those. And I have a whole stack of P200s. Some of these are factory seconds, and you can see, if I square those up there, you see the other end. Some of the seconds are shorter, sometimes you pay less for shorter. You'll see that the plan mentions for the leading edge 800 or 825, and then 625 and 650 respectively for the upper and lower leading edge. That may be because they're taking into account that sometimes these are sold shorter. But really they should be sold at the longer length, either as factory first or factory seconds. Factory seconds are much cheaper. And I try to get those whenever I can, and I've only ever had one fail on me, but I've had the regular ones fail on me too, and I mean just in building, not in flying. So I'm going to go through, we're going to use 4 of those for the leading edges, and then I'm going to use one of the shorter ones for the spine. I also have some fiberglass. ProSpar is a brand that made carbon fiber fiberglass combination spars. I like those. They're just slightly less diameter than the P200. I'll probably cut one out when we do this, and I'll fly it with both and see which one I like better. But the ProSpar ones they flex a little bit more for around the same weight, so sometimes that's nice. The other thing the plan does is it calls for either 270 millimeter fiberglass standoffs in 3 millimeter, and I have some of those here. You can tell this is fiberglass because the end is frayed and turns white when you cut it, and I'll have to cut these down to size, and if these aren't the right size, I have more fiberglass. But then also you can use 260 millimeter, 3 millimeter wide in diameter carbon. That's what I usually use, but I'm trying to use these up, and I figured maybe we'll make one set with the screw-on type and one set with the other standoff to sail connectors that I have there. So that's that. And then I think the one thing I want to mention, see these calipers sitting here, is that if you keep a lot of spare spars around, if you're making a lot of kites, it's really good to have a set of calipers. I mean, it's good to have these anyway, but I know when I grab spars, I like to measure these and make sure they're, make sure that's actually 5 millimeters right there. This particular caliper does inches and millimeters, down to 1/10 or 1,000th of either one. But I like that because I can measure and know for sure. And I have different, some of these have different thickness of walls depending on if you get brand. Excel is a good brand, or just the protruded ones you can find online. But that'll be an upper spreader there. So I think that's going to be it for this particular tutorial. We've seen some of the parts that are available and all of the items that we're going to need other than fabric, and maybe in the next video we'll go over the fabric, the different Dacryns and nylons, and the PC31 ripstop that we're going to use. It's all behind you on the wall there. And then maybe I'll give you an overview of this room in my shop at some point too, so you can see how I store everything. This is relatively new for me, so in this particular room, so I'm trying to keep it organized. But anyway, I'll see you next time.